All right, let's dive into something that's, well, a pretty big paradox. We all know India's government has been, let's say, skeptical of crypto, keeping it on a really tight leash. And yet, some of the biggest players in the game are right now building an Indian stablecoin. It doesn't quite add up, does it?
So that's the $1 million, or maybe the billion rupee question we're tackling today. If the official stance has always been pump the brakes, why on earth is there this big push for a stablecoin? To figure that out, we've got to back up and make sure we're all on the same page.
Okay, so first things first. Before we can get to the why, we need to nail down the what. What exactly is a stablecoin and what makes it so different from, all the other cryptos out there?
Think about it like this. Trying to buy your groceries with a volatile crypto would be chaotic. Imagine a kilo of potatoes costing 30 rupees one day and 300 the next. It's just not practical. That's exactly the problem stablecoins were invented to solve. Their whole job is to stay steady, so those potatoes always cost around 30 rupees. You get all the cool tech of crypto without the wild, unpredictable price swings.
So here's the key idea. A stablecoin is a digital token that gets its value by being pegged or tied to a real-world asset that doesn't jump around in price. Most of the time, that's a major government currency, like the good old US dollar. That's what keeps it stable.
So, how do they actually keep it stable? Well, it's surprisingly simple. Let's take Tether, or USDT, which is one of the biggest ones. For every single USDT token out there, the company behind it holds one real US dollar in a bank account somewhere. You hand them a dollar, they mint you a token. You want your dollar back? You just hand in the token. It's that one-to-one backing that keeps the price locked.
Okay, so now that we've got the basics down, this is where the story gets really, really interesting. It turns out India has this massive kind of secret relationship with stablecoins, and that is the real key to understanding why a rupee-backed coin is even being discussed. Get ready for this number because it is wild. Some unofficial estimates put the number of stablecoin users in India at over 314 million. Let me say that again, 314 million. That's not just a lot, that's the most in the entire world. So even with the government being cautious, on the ground, people are using this stuff like crazy. And when you look at the global market, which is worth around $250 billion, you see this. A whopping 98% of it is pegged to the US dollar. The dollar is just dominant, even in the crypto space. But here's the twist. Even though these are all dollar-backed coins, more than 80% of the actual transactions are happening outside the US. And a massive piece of that pie? You guessed it, it's coming right from India. So it just begs the question, right? What in the world is fueling this incredible demand in a country where the official line has always been so wary?
It really boils down to two main drivers. The first is pretty simple. It's a cheaper, faster way for people working abroad to send money back home. But the second one, this thing called arbitrage, is where it gets really juicy.
Let me break it down. Because there's so much demand in India and the local rules can be tricky, these dollar-pegged stablecoins often sell for a little bit extra. So let's say the official rate is 88 rupees for a dollar. Well, you might be able to sell 1 USDT for 92 rupees on a local exchange. That means anyone sending money home gets a free, 4% bonus. That is a huge incentive.
Now, all this demand means a ton of Indian money is flowing into assets that are backing the US dollar. And that's exactly what some are trying to change with this new Made in India solution, which they're calling the Asset Reserve Certificate, or ARC.
The two main players behind this are Polygon, who you've probably heard of if you follow crypto, and a local fintech startup called AMC. They've teamed up to create a stablecoin that's not backed by dollars, but by Indian government assets, like treasury bills.
If this works, the potential benefits for India are enormous. First off, all that money stays inside the country instead of flowing out. That could inject a ton of liquidity into India's own financial system, make its own government securities market stronger, and, big picture, reduce its dependency on the US dollar.
But, and you knew a but was coming, right? It is absolutely not that simple. There is a gigantic roadblock looming ahead, and it all comes down to one word: regulation. They're facing at least three huge hurdles. First, they're competing against dollar stablecoins that are already known and trusted. Second, India is still a massive regulatory gray zone when it comes to crypto. And third, and this is the big one, if a private rupee-backed stablecoin gets too successful, it could actually start to challenge the government's control over its own money supply. And that's a risk regulators are definitely thinking about.
And that brings us right back to where we started, to this central paradox. It feels like we're stuck in a loop, doesn't it? India has this massive incentive to build its own stablecoin and keep billions of dollars inside its own economy. But to do that, it has to create clear, supportive rules for the very same crypto assets it has been so wary of for so long. The real question is, will the promise of this massive economic upside be enough to finally break the loop? Or will the huge demand from its citizens just keep flowing into dollar-backed assets somewhere else?